Let's go for it!
Hey everybody, welcome to The Dark Stuff. It's me, your buddy Dave, the host here of the channel, and I'm back with a new video. Today I'm just going to talk about a couple of new records I've gotten recently. Most of these are new releases, and I got picked up a couple of used ones, and I'll just briefly mention them at the end, but I really want to focus on new releases because I've been getting a lot of great stuff lately, and two of the new releases are both from local bands for me, both from Omaha, and really great bands that are starting to make a real national impression, national impression. I guess that's all right. I thought that sort of came out kind of weird, but no, they're getting a national reputation is kind of what I meant to say, and they're touring all around the country, and maybe at some point all around the world, who knows, but their records are available everywhere, so that's the important thing. Now, the first guy I want to talk about is David Nance, and this is his new album, Negative Boogie. Now, I know it says Do the Negative Boogie, and in the song Negative Boogie, he says do the negative boogie over and over, but if you go by the spine of the record, it says the album's called Negative Boogie, not Do the Negative Boogie, so I'm calling it Negative Boogie. This is the new record from David Nance. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you know that last year I showed you this one. This was his album, More Than Enough, and I talked about it, showed some live clips from one of his shows that I saw, and it was a real, just wild kind of ramshackle, like, chaotic sort of Velvet Underground meets the late 60s Stones meets, you know, just a number of different artists. I got a real big, strong Dream Syndicate vibe off of them. Not many people agreed with me on that one, which, by the way, Dream Syndicate coming out with a new album this year. I've heard one new song. It was great, but that's a side note. So, on the new album, Mr. Nance did still some of his kind of lo-fi recording, kind of the crazy sounds, but he also went into ARC Studios, which is a studio here in Omaha called Another Recording Company. It's owned by Conor Oberst, at least partially owned by Conor Oberst, and it's a real expensive, nice studio. But you shouldn't think that that means the record is like super polished or anything. It's still real raw sounding, still really aggressive, a great combination of punk, blues, classic rock, garage, hard rock, I mean, just all sorts of stuff just thrown in. It's fucking amazing. I mean, I liked this other one, you know, this one More Than Enough, but I do have to say that in comparison, Negative Boogie is just much, much better. It just sounds, I mean, you know, maybe because More Than Enough has a couple of songs that are like over 10 minutes, and in my general rule is I think no song should be longer than 4.5 minutes. There's exceptions, of course, but anyways, this new record is great. It was recorded over a 3-day period at ARC, like I mentioned, and it is just fucking excellent. Now, David did a release show recently here in Omaha, and I filmed a good amount of it, and I'm really saving that for my next live review video, but I'm going to maybe put a clip or something in here just because the show was so excellent and the band was so great. So the album opens with a track called More Than Enough Reprise, which a throwback to the previous album, and it sounds just like that. You know, that sort of the chaotic playing, the sort of VU on the first two records where there was a lot of just craziness going on. And then it gets into the more structured rest of the album. The album is all originals except for a cover of Silver Wings, which is originally done by Merle Haggard.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight, roaring engines, it's somewhere in flight.
And it's sort of done as a duet with this woman Sarah Bowling, who's a singer for a band here called Icky Blossoms. You might have heard of them. They've got they're from Omaha too, but they also have records out. They tour around the world on that one, and she was at the release show too. So when I do show you that live video, you'll see she was there. I just love this thing. River with No Color is great. Cruel Kind of Love. That Silver Wings is excellent. Negative Boogie is excellent. Triangle Head is awesome.
Where the nurses all smoke, and he says there gotta be something out there. And his conscience is there, he's okay.
The closer, Ambulance, is a nice kind of quiet song that sort of builds towards the end. I mean, I don't know. I'm recommending this one. This is like a practically, if the level is 10 stars, I'd give it 9. If the level is 5 stars, I'd give it 4.5. It's fucking great. Negative Boogie, I almost said it wrong. Negative Boogie from David Nance. It's on the Bada Bing label. It is available anywhere. You can get it online. It should be in better indie stores. I would give that one, that's a solid recommendation from me. Okay, the next record I've got is from a local band that I've talked about a lot on this show a couple of times. If you go way back into my archives, you'll find a podcast interview I did with the band years ago when they released their first album. And the band I'm talking about is See Through Dresses, and this is their new album. It's called Horse of the Otherworld. Now you might be able to see that if the light just hits it right. It's black on black, the title there. It's on the Tiny Engines label. Okay, this is the band's third release, second full-length album. It does come with a lyric sheet, and then the record itself is pretty cool. It's got like this sort of pink and clear vibe going. It's excellent. On the inside you do have this lyric sheet. Got another thing with pictures of the band there. Okay.
Forget about drugs you came here for.
And one thing I did notice on this, and maybe you've noticed this too, and on other records, I never did, but I took the digital download, put it onto my phone, and I was listening to it in the car, and this is the artwork for the album, but on certain songs, the artwork changes to present like a different thing. Like, okay, for this song called Pretty Police, it all of a sudden the artwork changes when it displays in my car. Same with Lucy's Arm, that was the single, and another song called Violet, and it shows like a purple version of this as the artwork. I don't know, I'd never seen that before in a digital release. I've been a big supporter of this band for a long time. Here is their debut, self-released on the original one. It's now come out again, been reissued on Tiny Engines, and this was their self-titled. This is an EP called End of Days, which is great. Now, before I would have described their sound as very heavily 90s influenced. I would say it had a heavy dose of shoegaze. It also had a heavy dose of 90s bands like Dinosaur Jr. and Sebadoh and groups like that, sort of the Boston area of the late 80s, early 90s, and that was a big vibe on their sound. Hints of 80s. On the new one, though, it is very much going in an 80s and more synthy direction on this new album. So it is kind of a departure. The first single on the record was called Lucy's Arm. That one sounds pretty much like the original stuff. So it's got a lot of guitar. It's got the soaring sounds, you know. Two guitar players going. Matt and Sarah both are great guitar players, so you hear all these sort of competing parts and stuff. But a lot of the rest of the record is very synth heavy, and it reminds me of sort of the Cure, and not the popular Cure stuff. I'm thinking the Cure like Pornography and some of the earlier records from the early 80s where they were sort of more morose and dark and synth heavy and stuff. I also hear a little bit of Public Image Limited from their early days. So all in all, it's a great package. So if you're a fan of early Cure, Joy Division, New Order, shoegaze bands like maybe My Bloody Valentine, and also there's a heavy dose of 4AD early 90s sounds too. I would say it's heavy on the Cocteau Twins and groups like that. So if a group that sort of sounds like a cross between the Cure, the Cocteau Twins, My Bloody Valentine, and it's an American band from Nebraska, I would say this is a record that you would definitely want to check out. I just read online today they're going to be touring some dates in the fall, opening for Beach Slang. That'd be an awesome bill, by the way. Not here in Omaha, of course, but I can see them all the time. But that particular tour is not coming here. But I would say give them a listen. Buy the album. Okay, no question. You should be able to find it anywhere, at least order it online. See them live. They're a great live band.
If you thought extreme fashion was just for a woman's enjoyment, we have uncovered an exciting fashion piece that will certainly delight men worldwide. According to Metro UK, the edgy garment named Intimacy 2.0 becomes transparent when the wearer is aroused.
Next up is a new single from the band Twin Peaks. And as you know, these Twin Peaks had my #1 album of 2016. My #1 album is Down in Heaven from the Chicago band Twin Peaks. And this is their first new material since then. They have started a new single series called Sweet 17. And they're going to be doing this throughout 2017 every month, starting in June. This is the June record. Haven't got the July one yet. And they're going to be putting out a new 7-inch every month. And you get it. It's this one's a black vinyl 7-inch. The single is called Tossing Tears. The backside is called Under the Pines. It's great Twin Peaks music. You have to buy the whole series, and then they ship them to you monthly, as well as a download on it. That's through the Grand Jury label. If I can find a link, I'll put it somewhere on the screen, but it's definitely worth getting. It was kind of limited, and since I've already had this for a month, it might already be sold out. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's worth inquiring about regardless. The next record is the new one from Diet Sig. Here it is, called Swear I'm Good at This. This is a 2-piece band from New York. And I've talked about them before. I only knew them by name until last year's Maha Music Festival. They were on my stage. I watched them. It was an amazing show. I had such a good time. Alex Luciano is the name of the singer-guitar player, and she's great. Just tons of energy, jumping around on stage the entire time, never stops moving except to sing. And it was a really enjoyable show. And at the time I hadn't heard any of their music, so I didn't know what the recorded stuff sounded like, but I had really enjoyed the show. So now this is their debut album that they've just released, and it does come with a little booklet here, basically using, cut-ups and lyrics that are mostly handwritten. It's on this baby blue vinyl. It's nice. Now, I received this record from the record company, from French Kiss Records, for playing the album on my radio show a lot. And I'm actually really glad they did this. They're not the only band to have done that, but I'm really glad they did, because the CD that they sent me is edited. Because Alex says a lot of F-bombs in the tracks, especially the first 2 or 3, And so these were pre-done radio edits, and since that's the reason I got the album was to play on the radio, they were already pre-edited. While that saves me a little bit of time from having to make a radio edit, the annoying thing about it is then when I want to just listen to it, I can't, because I hear the edits all the time. So anyways, now I have the full, unabridged album. I go back and forth on this. Like, I really love them live, and when I first started listening to the record, I was kind of like, I don't know. The album does kind of grow on me. I will say that there are certain things that are great about it. Again, the exuberance. I think that Alex's lyrics are very just straightforward, just sort of, this is what my life is like. And if you want to hear songs about the sort of the trials and tribulations of a 21-year-old girl, and you can relate to that sort of scene, then I think you get a lot out of it. Me being a man in my 40s, it's sort of hard for me to kind of wrap my brain around some of the concepts. Some of them are just universal, thinking of reflecting back on lost loves or meeting somebody cool at a party or whatever, that kind of thing. There are really some good songs, and I like Alex's directness. She does have one song, I think it's 16, which is the opening cut, where it's kind of funny because she talks about dating a guy with her same name, so Alex, and then she says something about moaning my own name while trying to fuck. Like, well, that's an interesting lyrical proposal. I've never really thought about that. Initially it kind of reminded me of some of the twee indie pop from the 90s, and maybe the band like the Spinanes. And the Spinanes are a great band. Again, a two-piece, female guitar player, singer, male drummer, and that was kind of how they worked out. They only made a couple records because, again, when you're a two-piece band, you generally have a record or a couple of records and then you break up, or you sort of expand the process. Think of like the Black Keys as an example. I mean, they did 5-6 records as a two-piece, and then finally they realized that they've sort of reached their limit on that. And by coincidence, that's when they started getting boring, but that's a side note.
You burnt!
Anyways, Swear I'm Good at This by Diet Sig. Again, I am recommending it. I know Will over at Vinyl Potato also recommended this too. Haven't seen it too many other places in the VC. Now, these last couple of things I'm just going to burn through quickly. These are some new release CDs. Here it is, Peter Parrot, How the West Was Won. Don't know if you know this guy. He was the leader of the band The Only Ones. And I only know The Only Ones because of the song Another Girl, Another Planet. The Replacements used to do that song live. And then, of course, with the Replacements, I looked backwards and found out who The Only Ones were. This is actually his debut solo album. I gave it a brief listen. It's on the Domino label. It's decent. Again, he has this sort of more talking, singing style. It's a little bit different than when he was with The Only Ones, or at least the only ones I know, because I only know a couple of tunes by that band. So again, Peter Parrot, How the West Was Won. Got a new album from Guided by Voices, How Do You Spell Heaven? I have to give this one a more serious listen because I just got it for the radio show. And here's the booklet. Again, normal GBV style, handwritten lyrics, cut up pictures, placed together, stuff like that. This is, according to the hype sticker, the band's 25th studio album. When you add all of the various Robert Pollard side projects, of course, the guy's made like about 100 albums. But anyways, the 25th Guided by Voices album. New album from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Okay, this is their new one, Murder of the Universe. I've just barely started listening to this. These guys are so kind of intense, it's kind of hard to just give it a casual listen. You really sort of have to absorb it. But again, it's dark, it's heavy, it's like constant jamming. It's really interesting. This book is huge, and they got tons of great pictures on it. I liked their last album a lot, and I played it a lot. I talked about it here on the Dark Stuff, and I think a couple of people I think Vinyl Victim, if you're watching this, I think you mentioned that you bought a King Gizzard CD or record based on me recommending it. So they have a new one, Murder of the Universe. My last new one is the newest one from the Mountain Goats. It's called Goths. Again, this is a promo for my radio show. It's out on Merge. This is John Darnielle. The drummer is John Worster from Superchunk and Bob Mould's band. This is a different album from the Mountain Goats. They've been around since the early 90s. This album features no guitar. It's all arranged differently than they normally do. Keyboards, etc., bass, all sorts of other instruments. But there's no guitar on this particular one. Kind of made me think I wasn't going to like it. But I have to say, I really dug it. I mean, I did it as I even played the entire side one on my radio show. I do a thing every week called the Side One Spotlight where I play side one of an album. And I played side one of this. I got a lot of positive feedback. The last two things I picked up, I showed a lot of newer local music from Omaha. But this band here, Mousetrap, these guys are, this is a CD from 1993. They were, before Omaha really had a well-defined scene. There have been good bands from Omaha since the early 80s. I mean, like bands like Digital Sex. But really, Mousetrap was harder and heavier and more set the bar for an Omaha, punk or post-punk scene. This is a record called Cerebral Revolver. It was on Grass Records, which was a cool little indie label in the 90s that put out tons and tons of bands. I don't think any of them sold, but they seemed like they had unlimited money because they would put out like 10 records at a time. And this Mousetrap record is good. I've only had it on cassette, so I was glad that I finally could find it on CD. I found that at used at Half Price Books. And then the last CD I'm going to show you is, of course, I picked up this Nirvana live album from the Muddy Banks of the Wishkah. I used to have this on vinyl when it first came out at a really low period financially for me. I sold that record, so I haven't really had it. But lately I've kind of gotten back into listening to Nirvana. I'm old enough to have experienced Nirvana when they were actually a real band. I saw them twice. I met Kurt Cobain once briefly for just a few seconds. And so I went through the whole Nirvana experience. And in the 20 some odd years since Nevermind came out, 26 years, I've gone through phases, where I just will get back into Nirvana and listen to it heavily and then sort of put it aside and not listen to it for years. For some reason, recently, Nirvana's been doing it for me. So when I saw this sitting there for a couple of bucks, I picked it up. So there you go. Live music from Nirvana. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Bye-bye.